Close enough. But as you can see by the link, today, and the title of the thumbnail, which will be something along the lines of why we shouldn't cheapen things that should be solemn and sacred. Or why we shouldn't suck the romance out of things. Now, as a lot of you know, I spent Valentine's with my lady love, Stormy. We had a wonderful time. We basically just enjoyed each other's company and spent a lot of time talking, which we generally do. We communicate extremely well with each other. And on Valentine's, for supper, we cooked together, which is something we both like to do. Cooking. Cooking together just makes it that much better. And we didn't really have all that much of a plan about what we were cooking. We didn't really structure the day all that well. In fact, we essentially celebrated a 3-day Valentine's Day because I went to her place on Sunday and gave her her gift that day, mostly because I simply could not wait to see her reaction to it because I knew it was something she would love. And unfortunately, I'm still waiting for my gift to come in the mail. But bandsaws take a while to get here from China, apparently. Yes, we have that kind of relationship. She has actually stated openly to me repeatedly that she appreciates being given appliances. And I understand, as I appreciate being given power tools. We are very much the romantic couple, in a sense. But the gift I got her for Valentine's was very romantic. And she knows that when it comes to things that I'm given, I prefer to get things that are useful and don't necessarily equate only to ornamentation. And that's no slight to her. And she knows this. I'm not a particularly sentimental person when it comes to things. My sentimentality is reserved generally for actions. For example, every morning when I wake up, I give her a phone call, but before I call, I always select a song to send her for the day. It's just a thing we started doing, and I intend to keep doing it as often as possible. Obviously, when I'm waking up next to Stormy, I don't do that. I sing her a song. Generally, it's, honey, come here. No, but the whole point of this video is to talk about how the materialistic aspect of things, and this chapel in or on the southern shore here in Newfoundland is another example of cheapness. I mean, no one thinks of Las Vegas and goes, "Oh yes, that's the bastion of solemnity and sacredness." Yes, everything that happens in Vegas is, very serious, sober, solemn, and sacred. And the fact that they're planning to add an Elvis officiant to the chapel, sure, okay, whatever. Actually, that may not be 100% correct. I've just skimmed this article very briefly. But the thing that bothers me about it is weddings should not be a drive-through affair. A wedding, and this goes back to my ethos about keeping your word, honoring your vows, upholding your oaths, things like that. If you're going to do something as solemn as join two lives together, then you absolutely should not cheapen it with theatrics. Now, that said, I am perfectly content to hold a standard type wedding with a variety of potential ceremonial nerdy things, a lightsaber combat, any number of possibilities. One thing that comes to mind, based on mine and Stormy's history, is the idea of acting out a dragon slaying. And there's deep personal meaning to that, which I won't share here. But more than anything, I think the Trad-lifers have one thing right. Modern society sucks the romance and solemnity from too many things. These ceremonies are thousands of years old for a reason. And while there is a lot of symbology that can be dispensed with, some of it needs to be preserved because it, how to put it, it really inspires the spirit of the action. For example, getting married in a drive-through chapel or a quick wedding chapel or whatever you want to call it does not really speak to me of instilling the seriousness of the action. We all know the trope or the meme of the Vegas wedding that lasts 24 hours or less. And that's not to say that people who go to this chapel may not be getting married for serious reasons. But it does strike me as somewhat encouraging of a lack of solemnity, or a lessening of the solemnity of the act. That one's dead. My biggest gripe with this, and yes, I am chain smoking for this video, essentially. I'm actually smoking less every day. I just smoke more cigarettes when I do smoke. But to return to my point, if you're getting married in a novelty setting, it strikes me as sucking some of the sacredness, some of the solemnity out of the act. And men really need to be encouraged by each other, by ourselves, and by our women to honor our oaths and to take them seriously. Do not put your word on something that you are not going to stick to. Don't make a promise you intend to break. Don't make a promise you can't keep. Don't give your word about something and then go back on it. These are simple rules, and they're simple because they're meant to be hard rules. And they are hard rules to follow. Integrity is not an easy path, not by any means. There are constantly reasons to drop your integrity, to dispense with it. Sometimes it's financial expediency. Sometimes it's something serious, like your ability to travel. Given that I'm on YouTube, I will simply use the term jab, and you'll all know what I'm talking about, especially if you're familiar with the Canadian rules around jabs. But more than anything else, if you're pulling the, and I do apologize for breathing directly into the camera, I'm sure I'm fogging like crazy. But if you're taking the, and I'll use the term romance, though I'm not using it in the erotic sense at this point. But if you're taking the romance out of an act that should be solemn and not necessarily sober, not necessarily sober in terms of one's level of intoxication, but sober in terms of one's approach to it. If you're taking those aspects away, you're really taking a lot of the meaning away from the act. And the irony there, especially when it comes to a marriage, is you are making a vow to spend the rest of your life with someone else, upholding someone else's good, working for their benefit and yours. Why would you ever want to cheapen that? Why would you ever want to do it in a frivolous or, whimsical I can understand, but frivolous. Frivolous, I absolutely disagree with. A marriage is not something that should be undertaken lightly, by any means. And if you're the type of person who thinks that if you've ever used anything like the phrase, oh, getting married is no big deal, you should never get married. Until you've passed out of that phase, there are too many risks to young men, or less mature men, let's say, when it comes to marriage these days. Because if you choose the wrong partner, it can fuck your life. I'm 12 minutes in, I'm sure I can start swearing. And I've probably sworn before this. Come on, I'm from Newfoundland. It's part of the vernacular. Don't be a bigot towards me, YouTube. Don't you dare racially profile me, YouTube. I can swear because it's part of my ethnicity. You see how one should not take oneself too seriously either. But again, there are things that you absolutely should take seriously. Putting your word to something like joining lives absolutely deserves solemnity. Now, during the actual ceremony, absolutely. And you can put whatever trappings you want on that ceremony, but you need to take it seriously. Sure, you could, and I could happily see myself doing this, inviting my friends, my male friends, to stand and raise swords above us as we walk down the aisle. On the way out, of course. But by the same token, during the actual ceremony, one should undertake that at least with the mindfulness of how important and impactful that ceremony, that actual promise really is. And this sort of cheap and tacky approach to something that should be treated with a degree of reverence really does bother me. And I think as a thinking man, I don't appreciate it. I don't approve of it. I have a degree of disrespect for this, and disregard for this, and disgust for this, that approaches a visceral repulsion. Or visceral revulsion, I should say. I find it revolting. Sorry, slipped into the grandiose language there for a moment. But if you're going to put your word on something, be prepared and be aware of the consequences of doing that. You, especially when it comes to a marriage, you are going to be spending the rest of your life living up to that promise. Choose wisely. In any case, that's it for me. I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope you continue to have good days. And rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.